Make sure you stick around and watch today's video in full because I'm hosting a contest where you can win a brand new GoPro and some other prizes too. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been super inspired by Danny Gervitz recently. The baseball FX3 ad he did was just, he's on his own level. It's incredible. Now, he's got me very interested in spec ads, so I wanted to try making one myself. Something for today's video sponsor, which is Epidemic Sound. Now, I've never made anything like this before. It's definitely outside of my comfort zone, but that is how we progress. That is how we get better. Now, before I show you what I made, let me preface this by saying I shot this in 1 hour. It was just me, one lens, a 50mm f1.2 with a Black Pro Mist 1/8 filter on it, one body, FX3, everything was handheld. Let's take a look at what I made. There it is. It's far from perfect. There's lots of things I learned, lots of things I do differently. We're going to chat about my process in a bit, but I want to inspire you to get out there, get out of your comfort zone and attempt to make one of these for yourself. I'm then going to pick my top 3 and there's prizes involved. Now, I want you to try and do this on your own. If I can do it on my own, then you can probably do it on your own too, and I want that to be the theme for this. Try and shoot it solo. You'll learn a lot more that way anyway. A few guidelines here to keep you on track. The ad is for Epidemic Sound and the theme is to soundtrack the world. However you want to interpret that, you can. Shoot it on whatever you want, whether that's a mirrorless camera, the brand new iPhone 13 in cinematic mode, choice is yours. As today's video sponsor is Epidemic Sound, all music and sound effects has to come from Epidemic Sound. If you don't have a subscription, no worries, just click the link down below, you'll get your first 30 days free, and there's no commitment after that if you decide you wanted to cancel. Try to make the ad 30 to 60 seconds long. Remember that all our attention spans are completely ruined by TikTok, so 30 to 60 seconds is like a sweet spot. And just know that by submitting to this challenge, Epidemic and myself can post the videos that you make, because that's how we're going to pick the winners. Finally, don't submit anything offensive, inappropriate, distasteful, because we're not going to post it. Prizes are as follows. First place, a GoPro Hero 10. It's a pretty good price. Second place, 6 months free to Epidemic Sound and a $100 Amazon gift card. And third place, 6 months free to Epidemic Sound. So the opportunity to win some great prizes. Thank you, Epidemic, for putting those up. Now, to enter, use the form down below in the description box. It needs to be a direct link to your ad posted on YouTube. Make sure it's submitted by this date right here, and I'll announce and post the winners a week after that. Now, to help you with your video, I want to tell you about how I made my video, some things I learned, some things that you might find helpful. Firstly, I would highly recommend that you use a storyboard. When you first start shooting videos, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking everything is up here. You go out, you shoot a bunch of shots, just random things here and there, and you kind of have in your head that you're going to tie it all together in the edit. And while that's okay and it might work, what tends to happen is you massively overshoot and you just don't need to. This creates more work in the edit for you, and it can be really easy to miss a shot, which could potentially ruin your whole story. You can use whatever you want. I've been using Milanote. I just like how it lays out, and I just screenshot stuff like Command, Shift, and 4 on my Mac, highlight what it is I want to screenshot, goes to the desktop, drag and drop it into Milanote, and it's a really quick and easy way to make a storyboard. From Milanote, I can just export this as a PDF or a picture, print it off, and then I just have a copy where I use pretty much just like a shot list. This makes it a lot easier when you go to shoot because you can focus on other things, knowing you have your story and your shot list pre-prepared. You don't have to give it that extra thought. Now, if you're thinking about, well, what can I use for a story? Josh Yo has preached this for a long time, and it's something that I've just started to live by when I want to create a story. It's really simple when you think about it. You need tension and then release that tension. Or if you want to look at it another way, a character has a challenge they're trying to overcome, and then they overcome it. That's your story. If you just start with that, you can create a really simple, engaging story from there. So in my story, the character, who's actually my mate Joe, great street photographer in Toronto, go check him out down below. He's had a hard day working, comes home from work, has no motivation to do anything, knows he needs to go for a run. Eventually, he opens up his iPad, plays some tunes from Epidemic Sound, gets his motivation, has his aha moment, tension is released, goes for a run, overcomes his challenge. That's the story. Hopefully that came across in the story and you understood that. Now, some of you are probably thinking, well, Epidemic sound isn't music I listen to in the same way I listen to other music. And while I agree, I'll also say that a lot of my edits are based around music. And when I search for music, I often find myself coming up with ideas and getting really inspired off of how a song sounds and how a song makes me feel. Now, I actually had an idea for a different ending where he comes back from the run, opens Final Cut to finish a video edit, and the music and run was almost an inspiration to finish the edit. But on the day of shooting, I actually ended up canning that idea because I thought it would confuse things. In hindsight, it might have worked, but there you go, now you know. Now, a big thing for me that I didn't like, and a big regret, I didn't use any external lighting, and it's obvious. Everything was natural light. There's some shots in there that would have been so much better if I had proper lighting, but we were chasing the light for sunset. As I said, I shot this whole thing in an hour. We're actually a bit late for the sunset too. If you have the time and lights available, I'd highly recommend that you use some. It makes a big difference. As I said, that's my biggest regret. Now, I shot everything handheld, one body and one lens. Now, that was a creative choice. One lens because I like to limit myself sometimes. If you take out constantly having to think about what lens that you're going to use to shoot for these smaller projects, it just makes it easier and you can focus more on what it is you're actually shooting. I also went with the 50 f1.2 because I wanted to utilize that separation. Joe is on his own, just with his thoughts, so I wanted to really make him stand out from everything else. Using a really shallow depth of field helps solidify that. If you're interested more in the relationship between what we perceive as a viewer and lenses, I would highly recommend this book, The Language of the Lens. Really useful for teaching you about that kind of thing. Why did I shoot everything handheld? Well, I wanted that gritty handheld look, especially for the run-in sequence. It's a quick-paced edit. If I'd have used a stabilizer, it wouldn't have had the same feeling. So when you're shooting, I urge you to think about what you're shooting and decide if you really need to use a gimbal. They're often overused these days for a lot of things, so really think about it. If you have an A7S III or an FX3, the active stabilization is incredibly useful. I had that turned on for everything. It just smooths things out a little bit, reduces the overall shakiness quite a bit actually. For static shots, if you actually hold your elbows right into your chest like this, with the active stabilization, it almost is like you're using a tripod. It's pretty useful. You probably picked up on the sound design. Some of it was a bit more subtle than others. I actually added everything in post. I removed all the audio from when I was actually shooting. Most of it was just Joe and I talking back and forth about the shots, direction, that kind of thing. So all of the audio was added after the fact from Epidemic. The city ambience, the birds by the water itself, all the running shots, like the footsteps on the ground, the bag drops, sitting on the couch, all added afterwards. You can see in my timeline here how much sound I added. Spend time on sound design. It can make a huge difference. I probably spent more time on the sound design than anything else. Now, when it comes to the edit, be brutal. Just because you storyboarded and shot everything doesn't mean you need to use all those shots. Try removing shots and see if the same message is conveyed in the edit. I ended up removing a few shots because although they helped show he wasn't motivated, we already knew from the other shots that he wasn't motivated. So if you can cut things, do it. Too many shots might make the viewer bored. I know it can be hard sometimes. You shoot these beautiful shots you're really proud of, how it looks, but if it doesn't add anything, if you don't need it, cut it. Finally, when you've finished your edit, send it to some people and get their feedback. Send it to people that understand video and everything like that, but also send it to people that don't understand video and just watch it for what it is. Why? We need to understand if they understand the story and the message you're trying to portray. You spend so long planning and shooting and editing, you know the story inside out, but others might not. Remember that. I originally had a shot in there of Joe receiving a text asking if he edited it yet. That was meant to be the catalyst for him opening up the iPad, but the feedback I got from some people was that kind of confused things, so I just cut it. I also got some feedback that a simple tap of a play button on a song on Epidemic's website would be a good precursor for the run sequence. Now, I actually never shot that. I didn't even storyboard it, so I didn't have that shot to use. But as it was a close-up, I just shot it myself. That was my finger. That was me. That wasn't Joe. Unless I told you, you probably wouldn't have been able to tell. And finally, I didn't do this, but I considered it. If you think there's something missing, there's gaps in the story, you don't know how to tie it all together properly, you can add a voiceover. A ton of ads do it. You can salvage a complete edit with a voiceover. You want a great example of who does this in their YouTube videos? Kai W. So there we go. There's some things that I learned along this process. I'm hoping to do some more of these ads soon to progressively get better myself. If you want to go out and shoot your own ad for Epidemic Sound, enter this contest for the chance to win your GoPro. Follow the rules that I set out before. Submit it below. I look forward to seeing them all, and we'll chat soon. See you later.